Welcome to Whiteboard Programming, where we simplify programming with easy to understand whiteboard videos, and today I'll be sharing with you what is DAO in blockchain, how does it work, benefits of DAO, risks involved, and quite a lot more. So let's get started. Well, to state its meaning, the term DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization and can be described as an open source blockchain protocol governed by a set of rules that is created by its elected members, and it can automatically execute certain actions without the need of any intermediaries. Further, both the program rules and subsequent actions are recorded on a transparent and secure blockchain ledger, which cannot be tampered with, and that's all thanks to an immutable timestamp and the distribution of the information to the network participants. So, just to clear some basics, the platform where the DAO runs is called a blockchain, and the most common case where the DAO can be written is Ethereum blockchain. And in Ethereum they are written in Solidity language. Also, remember these 2 points are needed when you call something a DAO. That is, a DAO means number 1, an organization with a group of participants with a common goal. Number 2, an organization which is governed by code that is decentralized, open, and transparent. Now, if the system is well designed, the organization will organically evolve towards achieving the common goal. But hey, how does a DAO work, and what does this stuff like MakerDAO, voting, etc. mean? Well, for the same, in this video I'll be sharing several examples that illustrate the type of problems that DAOs can and are particularly equipped to solve, and will address various misconceptions that surround DAOs as we go. Hopefully by the end of this video you will have a clear idea of how DAOs work, at least in the high level. Example number 1, DAO. Now, the first example is a DAO that is literally called DAO, and it's confusing, I know, which is one of the earliest decentralized autonomous organization built on Ethereum. And to define it simply, it's a decentralized venture capital fund. To fill in the pointers we discussed a minute ago, in this case the group of participants are investors who have a common goal of maximizing the returns on their funds, and governance of code works as such. The smart contracts, which is built on top of Ethereum blockchain, will take votes from shareholders, that is, people who hold DAO tokens, on which startups to invest in and how much to invest in. The more tokens a shareholder locks up, more weightage he has in the vote. Once the votes have been recorded, the smart contract will automatically allocate funds based on the vote results. Here, participants can be sure that the vote results are fair because every line of code is transparent and immutable in blockchain. Now, you must be thinking, how does this differ from a traditional venture capitalist fund? Well, traditional venture capitalist funds have the principal agent problem, wherein by agent I mean board of directors, and by principal I mean the investors who have money in the fund, where agents take action on behalf of principal, but the agent's actions are more incentivized by his or her self-interest than that of the principals. In other words, board of directors do what is best for themselves as opposed to what is best for the investors. So in DAO, investors directly vote on projects that they want based on how much stakes or tokens they hold. However, while DAO was a good proof of concept, it failed because of vulnerabilities in its code, which were exploited by hackers to steal more than 50 million worth of Ether. This failure showed a fatal flaw that while the open source nature of DAOs make it transparent to the community, it also exposes DAOs to attacks by hackers. In fact, the hack was so influential that it directly led to a hard fork of Ethereum. Most of the Ethereum community agreed to roll back the blockchain to its previous state to undo the attack, while the rest rejected the rollback and insisted that code is law. And now the former group is called Ethereum today, while the latter one is called as Ethereum Classic. Example number 2, MakerDAO. While the DAO failed, DAOs are definitely not just an abstract concept as of today. Perhaps the most well-known example of DAO is the MakerDAO, which is sometimes also called as Maker Project, which currently has a thriving and rapidly growing ecosystem. People from MakerDAO project have the common goal of creating stablecoin DAI, which can be used by anyone, anywhere, anytime. The governance involves decisions on a variety of risk parameters such as what collateral can be used, how much debt can be issued, and fees. That ensures the stability of DAI and is done via voting by maker holders. As a detailed introduction to MakerDAO is beyond the scope of this video, I'll be employing a helpful analogy. That is, if MakerDAO is like a company, DAI is the product. The risk parameters are features of the product, and the maker holders are the shareholders of the company who vote on how to adjust product's features. Essentially, one DAI is collateralized by $1 worth of Ether, and maker holders vote to make a series of decisions to ensure that the price always stays stable and DAI is fully collateralized. It is very similar to centralized organizations where decisions like these are made by board members and executives. Or if a company is public, you may be able to vote by holding stocks or ownership of the company. Similarly, in MakerDAO, anyone who owns the token can vote on the decisions. Further, do note that in MakerDAO, voting is done via Maker Governance Portal, which is a user-friendly front-end to the smart contracts that make up the DAI credit system. To vote here, you need to lock up your tokens, and the more tokens you lock up, the more voting power you will have. Voting results are determined by the amount of maker that votes for each proposal. For example, if proposal A has in a total of 700 maker voting for it, and the proposal B has about 300 maker, proposal A would win with a 70% majority voting. On the same note, there are two types of voting in MakerDAO. Number 1, governance polls, and number 2, executive votes. Through governance polling, maker holders will be able to seek soft consensus on the basic principles of the ecosystem. The first example of which was the foundation proposal that established the 5 core principles of MakerDAO. And through the executive voting process, maker holders vote directly on the changes to the DAI credit system. For example, if some shareholders decide that they want to increase the collateral required to borrow DAI to ensure the stablecoin's stability, they simply put forward a proposal, and if the proposal passed the vote, the smart contract will automatically increase the collateral requirement. The beauty here is that the whole process is automated and no corruption is possible as the rules of governance are transparent and immutable on the blockchain, open to anyone who wants to examine them. Example number 3, voting. As can be seen from the previous 2 examples, contrary to the common misconception, DAOs do not eliminate the need for human input. It is simply a more transparent, corruption-resistant, and decentralized way to ensure the integrity of a system that exists to serve the participants' interest in the first place. In both DAO and MakerDAO, the participants themselves must decide on what to vote for, and the autonomous system simply ensures that their intentions are implemented with certainty. It is in some sense a corruption-resistant democracy, which brings us to the third example, which only exists in the conceptual phase right now. Just imagine a democratic nation where all the laws are recorded immutably and openly on the blockchain. A DAO can be used to automate the process of lawmaking, and when a proposal is made, the citizens can directly vote from their cell phones through a front end that connects them to a smart contract. Once the voting concludes, the laws are automatically changed based on vote results recorded on a smart contract. There are no elected officials that can act contrary to what people want. Instead, the power lies entirely in the hands of the people. So, regardless of whether you think this is a good idea or not, DAO can hence enable the most direct and honest form of democracy we can discover today. So now that you know what are DAOs and how they work, let's look into some aspects of it, starting with DAOs and security. The primary concern of DAOs is the lack of a method to quickly and easily change the code that governs the organization. As soon as a DAO is up and running, it's difficult to alter the DAO's code and implement bug fixes that would take only a small amount of time when completed on a centralized coding system. And as the code is visible to all the users but cannot be easily edited, bugs can potentially be exploited without a quick wait for developers to patch them up. That's the reason why correcting code in DAO requires a complete rewrite of the code and an agreement to migrate all funds on the network, which means that the holes in the DAO's security are more exploitable when compared to a centralized system. Further, to sum up risks of DAO, we can say that first, a DAO's code is clearly visible and difficult to edit once the system is in operation. This makes it easier for hackers to exploit bugs and loopholes in the code, which was one of the factors that contributed to the DAO's massive hack in 2016. Number 2. Lack of governmental precedence. Now, as a developing technology, there is no government precedence concerning DAO's operation, and the legal status of this type of tech is still unclear. This presents future risks to developers hoping to develop a DAO in any part of the world. Next, let's discuss about benefits of DAOs. So, despite potential security concerns, DAOs offer a number of benefits to consumers and users, including number 1, transparency. That is, users on DAO can clearly see the code that governs the network as well as any transactions that take place on the blockchain. This provides users with a high level of transparency when compared to a centralized network. Number 2, more efficient organization. That is, instead of using a central trusted third party to execute operations on the network, DAOs use predefined codes and conditions to automatically carry out these contracts. This eliminates many of the cost and security risks that come with relying on a third party. Number 3, an autonomous structure. As DAOs offer investors a unique opportunity to submit proposals and ideas for improving the organization. Thanks to the autonomous structure of the DAO, any investor can submit a proposal regardless of their stake in the network. But do note that submitting proposals also costs money, which improves the quality of proposals submitted by ensuring that users making the submissions have a stake in their submission. Next, you must be wondering now, how can you invest in a DAO or how to become a DAO shareholder? Well, if you have ever bought and sold cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum, you'll find it very easy to become an investor in a DAO. Each DAO issues its own coin that you can freely buy and sell on major exchanges in the same method that you'd use to buy and sell any other type of cryptocurrency. After opening an account with a broker, you can become a shareholder in a DAO's network by investing in its coin offering through any brokerage exchanges like Crypto.com, Coinbase, or Gemini. A few examples of currently operating DAOs include Dash, MakerDAO, and Augur. Lastly, to conclude, DAOs envision a collective organization which is owned and managed by its members, with all of them having a voice in the network. Many analysts and industry leaders affirm that this type of organization can be the next trend and even potentially replace some of the big traditional companies across the globe. With that, I hope this video was helpful to you and served value. If you love my content, feel free to smash that like button, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do, as it keeps me motivated and helps me create more content like this for you.